Hello and welcome to Ask John. I think this is episode 23, maybe it's 24, something like that. And this is the third episode that we've filmed during the COVID era. And so this is my third episode, my show. I think Rich has probably done a lot of things. My guest here today is Rich Friesen. I'll introduce you in a moment. Rich may have done some other videos. I'm sure he's done a lot of stuff on Zoom. And I've had a lot of meetings on Zoom, but this is the third Ask John that I've done on Zoom. And it's going to be a good one. This is a repeat performance by my friend Rich Friesen. Rich came to my Rotary Club a few years ago. I think he's been there twice, maybe three times, and given talk on healing the political divide. And it is, boy, that was like 7 years ago that he first did that. And who would have guessed that it is more topical now than it has ever been? Oh my. And then Rich was a guest on my show on Ask John. 3 episodes of healing the political divide, and we got into a lot of the nuts and bolts of it. And Rich has a great command of the history of this division. But I think I'm hoping that we're going to get more into the real social problem that's going on right now. And anyway, Rich, welcome to Ask John.
Well, thank you, John. It's always such a pleasure because you are a very challenging host. You both bring out the best of me and really challenge me sometimes and push back. So I find between the two of us, we get a lot of creativity. So I think this is going to be a great time, and I'm looking forward to a very creative conversation.
I like your attitude, Rich. Not many people are feeling this upbeat right now. And what's going on right now, I don't know, you might be watching this sometime after November 3rd. Right now what is today? The 16th of October.
Yep.
And so we're 2 or 3 weeks away from the election. And we're going to try to talk as if, I don't know, does anybody think that the result of the election on November 3rd is going to change anything about how we feel about each other, how angry we are, how we misunderstand and mistrust each other? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely, John. No matter who wins, the other side's going to go, phew, well, I'm glad that's over now. We can be all peaceful and get along, and we can now have Thanksgiving without ripping each other's throat out. It's going to be wonderful. Everything's going to be just fine because we're all going to just feel the love in our hearts.
Oh, don't be so pessimistic. It's not going to happen unless we do something about it, and we can do something about it. We're not going to find any great leader out there that's going to win an election and solve these problems. It's not going to happen. If it happens, it's going to happen because you did something, because I did something, Rich did something. And hopefully we'll get to that. What can you do to resolve this? It's not a political problem that we're experiencing. It's a social problem, and it's a very serious social problem. And I think many people will say that it's what you want to call a health problem, a medical problem. It is in a lot of ways. So what can we do about it? Let's talk about it.
Okay.
So first, Rich, Professor, what is the history of this political divide that we're experiencing, just on the political level?
Oh my gosh, if we start early on at the founding of America, there was a rebellion against centralized authority. And so we'll just call that centralized authority. And the United States went through its founding, just a lot of arguments. And what is so beautiful, although the founding documents weren't perfect, they were the product of some of the best struggles and thinking and arguments that there was in the world. We changed the whole character of politics by saying the primary value is the individual, and that government there is there to protect the rights of the individual. massive change from where we were. But as you know, all countries go through cycles. And we've been through several of them. And we've been through some horrible cycles. I think of the Civil War. You think of the Civil Rights Movement. You think of women's suffrage. Huge amount of just struggles that bring us to where we are today. And as you know, and even though it doesn't feel like it, my gosh, we have made incredible progress.
It doesn't feel like it.
Yes.
There's something called recency bias, isn't there? We think that we're more divided than we ever have been. I think sometimes when people say that, I think about, what was it, the 2000 election. 2000, we had an election that was very contentious and wasn't settled easily. It took weeks, months, I forget how long it took.
Oh, this one will be though.
This will be okay. Yeah, this will be okay. It'll be definitive, right? Midnight, November 4th, we will know, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone will agree and be very happy.
Yeah.
So the question is,
yeah.
What is this visceral, visceral, emotional reaction when I talk to my progressive friends and I see the anguish? The anguish is palpable. The stress in their bodies. If you were to take blood samples or hormonal samples, they would be stressed out to the max. They see the Trump world as ending their world and their life and fairness and equality and moving to a despotism that is going to squish them. I talk to my more conservative friends. Oh my God, the whole left-leaning media, the universities, the educational institutions, the politics, the deep state, they are all here to destroy our constitutional government and end our freedoms. Now, if you happen to be neither of those two and drift more toward libertarianism, it's you might as well go like this. The emotional anguish is as intense as I have ever seen it, even during, like the 69s, the Democratic Convention, Kent State and all that. It wasn't as palpable as it is today.
Let's talk about the actual politics of it. Maybe in terms of policy. So you and I have talked many times about how Congress has voted, and we have the Democrats and the Republicans, and how there was a time. Was there ever really a time where there was a lot of agreement? They would vote on bills, and there'd be a lot of overlap, so let's talk a little about
that. Well, there's a well-known chart that shows, coming from the 50s, the overlap in voting between Democrats and Republicans. And it was really significant. The differences were minor. The philosophic differences still were rooted in some of the same sociological and philosophical roots. So a lot of overlap, but of course each side wanted more power and there were differences. But those charts also show that those are separating, and now there is almost zero overlap in votes between the Democrats and Republicans. And I think that is very reflective of the emotional state of most people in this country. We have a bunch that are moving way to the left, a bunch of moving way to the right. There's a part non-political or independent in the middle, but the differences between those two is very strong. And we can see that as a therapist, when I measure emotional reactions, it is as high on the charts as it gets.
And we've had conversations about how you've drawn out this triangle with the conservatives and liberals and libertarians on the top, and how the discourse, I think most people don't even know where they are on that chart. But those people who do know are mostly in the middle somewhere. And yet all of the public discourse comes from the outside and through across the middle. Uh,
Yeah, I think that, we have people who know that they are progressives or Democrats or leftists, depending on the word you want to use. And if we look at the emotional base of that, that is fairness, equality, outcomes, social justice. Those are the things we look at. And that is really important to understand that that is the emotional consideration. If we look at conservatives, the emotional consideration is moral order and responsibility and religion and traditional ethical stances and the Constitution. They are looking to maintain a moral order. If we look at the libertarians, their emotional trigger is personal freedom. And anything that impinges on my personal freedom, whatever it is, they're going to look at the conservatives whose moral constraints on them, they're going to react against. The progressives who want to impose a social order with outcomes and rules and regulations, they're going to react against that. So I've struggled with this for so long, for so many years. And I read a book called The Book of Not Knowing. The book is a difficult read because it really challenges everything you think you know and your levels of certainty. And as I started letting go of
the title is good enough.
Yeah. As I started, letting go of certainty and saying, okay, I have certain models, I have certain beliefs. And as I started letting go of them, I was able to see a bigger picture. But there was this emotional part still there that no matter the philosophy major, the psychotherapist, the psychologist, that he knew up here that so even-tempered everything. But there was this emotional part that said, no, I'm right.
Of course you're right.
Yeah, of course. So I have this intellectual part that looks at the big picture and an emotional part that is, okay, it's convinced. So then it occurred to me, what if? Imagine what if I allowed that emotional part to be rather than trying to squelch it or whether to try to deny it. But I said, I have an emotional part. And for me personally, my personal freedom is that emotional trigger. So I probably, on balance, move more toward the libertarian side because that's my emotional trigger. And if I identify that as an emotional trigger, then all of a sudden, and allow that to be okay, then can I allow the emotional states of both the conservatives and the liberals to be okay? Wow, that's asking a lot of my emotional state. But as I practice that, as I focus on that, as I allow that to be, all of a sudden, I can feel compassion and love for people on all parts of the political spectrum. Of course, excluding racists and fascists and people who just, want to use the boot to put on my neck and put on everyone's neck. But people of goodwill of any part of that political spectrum, I can say, for example, for the progressives, you really care about people. You want everyone to do well. You want outcomes for people that are really wonderful. For the conservatives, I can have compassion for their moral order and for their emphasis on loving families and the Constitution and changing things slowly in a compact that we can all agree on, and we change it, and we do change it, but we change it with a big consensus.
Oh, Rich, you're talking about you're a citizen. You're not a politician. You're not running for office, and politicians don't look at it that way. And why? Why don't
Nobody looks at it this way, John, except for you and me. I have just introduced something that nobody else cares about.
yeah, and you're having a hard time looking at it.
And I'm having a hard time with it.
So what is in it? I mean, this is a softball question, I guess, but what is in it? Why do politicians go? Why is all the discourse, the political discourse from the fringes?
Yeah, what's happened is originally government was instituted by the people to protect their rights. It was very libertarian. If we had a minimal government, low taxes, and that the citizens through locals and states created the infrastructure, the roads, and basic set of rules. And we had a core set of laws that say in the Constitution that were just a minimum definition of the rights we held, it would hardly matter who was in office. But now think about it. Both the conservatives and the liberals have grown government so that it impacts every minutia area of our lives. Now, I'm not arguing that's good or bad.
This has given away a lot of their power, have they not? In other words, they've, rather than decide, what we ought to do about the environment, they created an EPA that has a lot of power. They have a lot of legislative power without being voted. And I think there's a lot of examples. That's one that comes to mind.
That's one of them. There are a lot of examples like that. And I think you're exactly right. So if this government has so much power.
They've given the power to the executive, have they not? So, I mean,
executive orders, bang, bang, bang.
So who is president makes a whole lot more difference now than it
huge
is.
Difference. And who's on the Supreme Court makes a huge difference in our lives. So if you have the emotional trigger of equality of outcome, fairness, and justice, oh my God, if somebody is there and the Supreme Court is going to take away that outcome, that really matters. If you're a conservative and the Supreme Court is going to create a whole new set of laws and our conservative activism that's going to judge outcomes rather than process, oh my God, that's so destructive. If you're a libertarian, you're looking at this whole mess between the conservatives and the progressives, and you're saying, oh my God, they're both here to limit my personal choice. And so as a result, what you're pointing out is so important because now it matters. And I think healing the political divide, that is an important piece of information that we need to look at.
So we're talking about politicians and what they're doing, but why should we conform to that worldview? Why can't we? No. I know why we can't. I know what the problems are. We've talked a lot about that. And I think our viewers understand a lot of what's going on, but I think a lot of us don't understand what we can do about it. Okay, so now, the election's over, somebody won, or maybe while you're watching this, maybe we're way past November 3rd and we don't even know who won.
Most likely.
And maybe we are, maybe tomorrow's Thanksgiving. You're watching this some Wednesday in November, and maybe tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, maybe you could show this at Thanksgiving dinner and help heal the political divide in your family.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll do that. So, so how are we going to talk? How are we going to? Okay, give me a clue. How can I talk to? I'm not going to mention names. How can I talk to those people? How can I talk to those people that I love? How can I talk to those people that I love who don't really want to talk to me?
Yeah. Well, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, my hammer is being a therapist. And my invitation to my clients is to create additional choices in their life that work better for them. So what I look at is if you can't change the world, you can change yourself. And what do I mean by this? And there is a lot of us react when something comes in from the outside, we package it with meaning. And that meaning then hits us and hits our tender spots, politically. And as a result, it hits us, hits our tender spots, and pow, pow, right away, we want to assert ourselves, to protect ourselves. But my invitation to everybody is to unpeel the meaning from the event itself, so that as the data comes in, it doesn't come attached to meaning, but now we have more choices in our life to attach meaning to it. And the second thing is, can we accept our own positions? But I'm asking something that's really hard here, John. I'm asking you to accept your position as an emotional position, not as capital T truth. And I can say that because if I look at my life over the years, I have held beliefs that are absolutely, positively, without a doubt true. I was certain and I was closed. Several times, several beliefs.
Yeah.
So what the heck do I think that Rich Friesen, one of how many billion people in the world, happens to be the one person that's got it right? Well, I think the chances are probably at least 50-50. Oh, wait a minute. How many billion people in the world?
I don't know. I started off, I started off correct, and I just stayed there. I haven't changed.
Oh, okay.
I'm still right.
Well, you are one of the few.
I don't want to say that I'm right. I just want to say I'm correct.
In fact, maybe we ought to start a Church of John, and I'll come for our Sunday morning worship and just learn the absolute truth.
Okay, so I'm people know me well enough that they know I'm joking. And some of people know me so well they know I'm not joking.
But what you say is so important, because down deep in that emotional center, we know we're right.
Yeah.
And so what I'm asking you or inviting you to do is to understand that, to allow it to be, to accept it completely, wholly and completely, but as an emotional position that has validity, as do others' emotional positions. Now, once we do that, and you meet somebody, if you're a conservative and you see moral disintegration in our world, and you see a progressive or a liberal who wants to, end traditional families, wants to, end traditional sexual mores, who wants to, have abortion up to time of birth and all these things. Oh my God. How do you look at that in a way that you can communicate? And I think that once you accept your own emotional position, you can say, what is the positive intent of your emotional position? So when I go into a conversation, I say, boy, you feel really strongly about that. What's the positive intent of that? How does that make the world a better place? What would happen if everybody believed that? What would happen if nobody believed that? So what I'm asking them to do is start to do some critical thinking about their emotional position. Now, if I come to it to try to prove they're wrong or touch their emotional base, bam, all of a sudden we are in this emotional confrontation that has ended many a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner.
So I have this way of phrasing. I think it's probably not as eloquent as you put it, but I have this firm belief that there is no chance that I can change your mind unless I'm willing to change mine.
Yeah, I like that, because what you're saying is I am looking at my current position as a model, and I'm always willing and interested in updating my model and making it better. So if that's what you're saying, and that's what I think you're saying, then when you approach somebody, you're going to say, look, this is my way of thinking, but I'm always willing to improve it. And this is the challenge. If we can come to that point internally, all of a sudden, we're healing ourselves. And I would propose that we are healing the political divide. This could be like a meme or a positive virus that spreads as we allow ourselves to consider our emotional truth, allow ourselves to our current way of thinking as a model. I've gotten in the habit of the last couple of years to say, well, my current way of thinking or the current model I am using. So what that says, not only to remind myself that I am in a continual process of learning, but it tells the other person that I'm not holding on to a capital T truth, but I want to engage them in my continual process of learning.
And another facet of that same issue, it's hard for me to believe that I can change my mind because I'm so certain that I'm right.
Yes.
But one thing that I'm
okay, so could we stop right here for a moment? And could you rephrase that? My emotional part of me is certain it is right.
Okay.
Just try saying that out loud.
Okay. Yeah. The emotional part of me is certain that I'm right.
Okay. So that is huge right then and there. That is a huge change.
Thanks for the therapy, Rich.
I can't help it. I'm a hammer. I hit nails. What can I say?
So to continue my brilliant thought here is I'm not very likely to change my mind about what the other believes. But I am really good at changing my mind about how I assess that other person and the value of that person's beliefs and the value of that person as a person. I'm good at that. I can do that. And I think I'm looking at you, whoever is watching this video, you can do that too. You can do that. You can reassess the people that you are judging, and you can assess them to have validity and that their thoughts and their positions are valid. And you can do that without giving up your own thoughts.
That's true. And one of the things that I work with my clients is to hold multiple positions, multiple thoughts, and multiple models in their mind at the same time. What that does is says we're not just attached to one. And again, the process of letting go of that. I mean, our survival mechanism, which has been with our human race since we were, still in the trees, our survival mechanism is so powerful. Who was it? Darwin was looking at an asp, a very poisonous snake, and it was behind this piece of glass, and the snake struck him. He went like that. They thought, wow, that's a real primitive reaction that's baked into my neurology. And he says, but I can overcome it. And he tried it dozens of times. He could not overcome that startle reflex. Our survival mechanism is just baked in, and it's really powerful, and it will not let us go anywhere it doesn't feel safe. So the process of going from I have absolute truth, you are wrong, this is the only way we're going to survive. And if that survival mechanism is attached to that belief, oh my God, that snake goes boom, and we go boom. So that process of letting go, and what you talked about, John, was so important, is looking at others and looking at them as having a valuable look as I like to phrase it, looking at them like they have a positive intent for their life, and looking for that and searching for that positive intent. And my experience is if I search for that positive intent and drill down long enough, I find something that heart to heart we can both connect with. Now, building back up from there, there's going to be differences because of perspectives, lifestyles, genders, belief systems, and all that. But almost always. Now, there are some people that are so.
If you can go that far, if you can go that far, Rich, the other, it makes it easier for the other to come closer to you.
Oh, yeah, because they feel that heart connection.
Yeah.
So what that takes from me, and this is the challenge, is to feel my own heart connection. If I can't connect to my heart with love and appreciation for who I am, and recognize that I have positive intent and I'm doing the best I can and I love myself, oh my gosh, I can then extend that. But if I feel guilt, if I feel self motivator self.
You
And
froze.
What?
You froze there just for a moment.
Okay, I'll rephrase that. I have somebody that's personal to me that when they wake up in the morning, they start self-criticism in order to motivate themselves, in order to feel safe in the world. So with that model, can we all of a sudden expect ourselves in a conversation with somebody who feels threatening to us, that snake? Are we going to be able to look for the positive intent? No. So to healing the political divide, are you ready for the secret?
Yeah, that's what we're here for. What's the secret?
It's the secret. Now, you're not going to tell anybody. We don't want this to get out. It's too powerful. Is that to heal the divide in our heart, to become in rapport with all of ourselves. Many of you people know that you've known somebody probably that when they walk in the room, they are in rapport with themselves. They look in a room at a party, they walk in, they're comfortable in their own skin. People can say all sorts of things. They're amused, they're curious, they might say something of interest, but they love themselves and they're complete in themselves. And they then can step into healing the political divide. But as long as we are at odds in ourselves, we have parts in ourselves, we have voices, guilt, self-criticism, we feel we're not enough, we feel we're not worthy to walk in the world, we feel like we should, we have not met our parents' expectations, we're not making enough money, we have all this stuff going on, and all of a sudden that snake bites, and we go like that. Of course we do. So the healing the political divide, John, now this is very self-serving because I'm a therapist, is to heal ourselves and become in rapport with ourselves.
We're gonna try to wrap up here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
We talked briefly just ahead of time about okay, let me just put it out there to you, Rich. It's different this time. This is the era of Trump. Wait a minute. Maybe this is, I don't know what's happened. Maybe this is the end of the era of Trump, but it's certainly different. It is different this time, right?
Go back to the Civil War. And compare this to the Civil War. Oh my God.
Yeah, I like to say that it's different. I like to say that it's the same in a different way. And,
yeah.
And what you're doing is you're comparing it, and rightly so, to an era that was much worse. We had so much more trouble. We were actually, brothers were killing brothers.
Brothers, yeah.
And that they weren't just arguing. They weren't just upset with each other. They were actually killing each other. What horrible kind of Thanksgivings did they have?
So look how much better we are.
Yeah.
I know there's still complaints, and that's because systems are a reflection of our own faults, our own humanity, our biases, our issues. And so as a result, nothing is ever going to be perfect. And if you want a perfect system and an outcome, that means first we're going to have to make perfect people. But I would like to say, if you look back through long-term history and where we are, and even the worst of us, where we are, oh my gosh. And I'd like to invite you into the thought that things are going to get better. That we as humans are on a track that I believe is irreversible. It is not a slippery slope that it leads to the end of time. It's a pendulum, but that pendulum is on a track to move forward and to make our world better. We have more tools now as individuals to really look at how we feel, how we see the world, and to improve ourselves, because we have the luxury of time, the luxury of money, we have the luxury of safety in our homes and our places. And as a result, we can work together to make ourselves, each of us, to become the people that we really want to be. And that will change the world.
So we're not going to put our faith in some leader or we're going to put our confidence in ourselves, and we're going to put our faith in whatever, however we think of the higher power.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a much higher power than our
Yeah. If we, one of the advantages of the early nation is, I think, what Sam Adams said it, that the nation can only survive as a Christian nation, or in modern terms is we can only survive together if we all are morally responsible. And once we are, for ourselves, and we take care of others in the world around us, well, then we have a chance to keep moving forward. And I'm really confident in the American people that even with these bumps now, that if we look beyond all the hills and the anguish, that we're going to step into a better world for our kids and our grandkids.
Okay, Rich. Good
Hey, John.
Good job. Oh, I'm glad we had this talk. I'm glad that we recorded it.
Okay.
I'm glad that you watched. I'm glad that you're here watching wherever you are. I think we might have. So this is like the 4th episode of Healing the Political Divide with Rich Friesen, and who knows? Maybe this will be a series.
It could be. I'd love to invite other people and get more input, get more reaction out of those challenges when we're talking to somebody of a different point of view. Often that tension creates beauty and gold.
Rich, thank you so much. I really appreciate the great work you do. And thank you so much for appearing on Ask John one more time, and not for the last time.
Okay.
And
Take care. Be well.
Take care now. Okay. Be safe out there.
Be safe.
Okay. Bye.